Go. Hello, welcome to Wealth FX, and I am your host, Mr. Babs. Today, I'm going to be talking about a very significant concept in the trading space that a lot of people might have been doing wrongly. And what would that be? We're going to be talking about the ultimate trendline trading strategy. Now, have you been struggling with how to use trend line, what is trend line, how to draw your trend lines, and things like that, how to interpret your trend lines, then you want to watch this video till the end because I'm going to be simplifying the concept of trend line trading as much as possible. Now, what are we going to be learning in this video? First of all, we're going to start with the basics of trend line, and then we're going to talk about how to draw trend lines accurately, and then some common trend line mistakes that traders make. Also, the best entry and exit strategy when using trend line, and as well, we're going to analyze a live chart. All right, so without wasting too much time, what is the basics of trend line? Now, like I like to say, trend line is basically a trend line is simply a line drawn from one swing point on the charts to another swing point. Now, what this basically means is that when you are drawing trend lines, you're literally connecting one side of the chart to another. So this is a monthly chart, gold chart. Let's go to the daily. Now, if you actually look at that gold chart, you see some lines, but I want us to okay. Now, if we're on the monthly time frame, this is where our monthly trend line intercepts coming from the monthly time frame. So now what trend lines basically are is lines that connect one point to another. So this is a trend line. Now this will be a swing point. Now the way we use trend lines, of course, we know in uptrends we want to keep seeing higher lows and higher highs, and in a downtrend you want to keep seeing lower lows and lower highs. Now, having said that, how do we draw trend lines? Now, a lot of people will be asking, how do they draw trend lines, or what are the best ways to draw trend lines? Now, some people ask, okay, should I just focus on the candlestick body? Some say, should I focus on the candlestick wicks? And some say, can I use both? From my experience, I advise when drawing trend lines, you want to make sure you draw it to to incorporate multiple touches. That's you want it to have multiple touches. That's what makes your trend line valid. And now averagely you want to have at least two different touches. Now it could be more than two, it could be three, four, yes, sometimes. And of course, the more touches, the more valid the trend line. Now mind you, a lot of people make the mistake of thinking just joining two swing points is a confirmation to trade trend lines, and I'm going to be busting your bubble and telling you that is very wrong. In short, that's the fastest way to get frustrated using the trend line strategy. So yeah, when you have your swing points, now for uptrends you have it towards the upside, and then for downtrends you have it towards the downside. Now let me see if I can show you a downtrend move. Okay, yes. Now this would be in a downtrend scenario. Let's assume I want to connect this downtrend using trend lines. All I have to do is connect it from this point to the next touch. Now this will be an accurate trend line. Now notice how price respected this here, and then you can join from this point to the next touch point. Now that is how to use your trend line. Now a lot of people wonder, why do we use trend lines? And we use trend lines because, one, trend lines can act as supports for your price action movements, or it can act as resistance for your price action movements, just like you have here. Now also trend lines break can actually result in trend reversal signal. So when I see a trend line the price has been respecting for quite some time, and all of a sudden I notice price tends to break below it, pulls back probably to the order block, which becomes breaker block, and then starts to go in the initial direction. So yeah, that's for that. Now, how to draw trend lines effectively? I've shown you. You just connect two touch points and make sure you connect as many points as possible. All right. So that's for how to draw a trend line. Now, some key principles to take note of is, one, you need minimum of two touches to draw a valid trend line. The more, the better. Two, trends are rarely smooth and perfect, and markets are choppy, messy, and unpredictable. So you might not have it exactly as the books may show you. Also, treat trend lines as zones and not exact lines. They are tools used to guide your trade potential, not trade signals. Also, don't force trend lines. When you're trying to join swing points, or maybe swing highs or swing lows together, you want to make sure you are not trying to force the chart into the trend line. Instead, make sure your trend line is as relative as possible. Wheresoever it touches appropriately, that is the zone you want to pay attention to. Now, I've shown you, we've talked about how to draw trend lines, how to the basics of trend line mistakes. Now the best entry and exit strategy. There are two approaches to using trend lines when we are trading price action. Now the first one is what we call the bounce. Now the trend line bounce is seen when you notice price bounces off a particular trend line point. Now the next time price comes to that area, you notice some form of rejection, maybe probably a chart pattern or a candlestick pattern or a zone, and then you see a confirmation like an engulfing candle, and then it continues to bounce off the trend line. Now that is the trend line bounce. Now we also have the trend line break, which has to do with when you notice price comes back to the trend line, but rather than bounce off, it now breaks below the trend line, tries to probably pull back, retest, and then starts to go downwards. So yes, trend lines might not give you 100% reward margin, but then it can increase your profitability and the accuracy of your trade by a good percentage if you focus on identifying these trend lines appropriately and using them appropriately. Now, using trend lines to trade, you can look for areas where you notice the trend line is in alignment with a zone. For instance, let me show you what I mean. For instance, something like this area is a zone, and we call this confluence zone. Now what do we mean by confluence zone? Confluence zones are those areas where you have multiple confirmations for a particular trend or chart before you before you take your trading position. Now, in a situation where you notice price has literally been bouncing off away from the trend line, and then at some point you notice price begins to approach the trend line as if it is coming to retest. Now what you want to do is you want to see if there is an alignment of a zone, possibly this resistance turn support, which is resistance here, happen to now turn support here, and then price did a higher low around trend line, closing with an engulfing candle, and it's continued to skyrocket ever since. So yeah, you want to combine your trendline trading with high confluence zones. Now, these high confluence zones increases your profitability margin and potential trade by a good percentage, uh, possibly as high as 12, 10, 20% or more sometimes. Because trust me, I use this to actually take high probability trades. Okay. um Having said this much, I hope I've been able to simplify trade line trading as much as possible. Now, of course, if there's anything you don't understand or you want to ask me, please feel free to drop a comment in the sections, as I do well to check the comments and I'll be sure to address your pain points. Now that we have been able to, talk about trend line trading this much, let's go to a chart and see what trend line trading can be used for. Now, this is a Euro GBP live charts, and as you can see, this is the 4 hours. Now if I go as high as daily time frame or weekly, you notice that price is actually coming from a trend line, a monthly trend line. This is a weekly chart. Now it did an engulfing candle, got to this resistance zone, did a pullback, and now if I go to the daily, I can see I can keep connecting downtrend highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, until this point where price got to this equal low, which happens to be demand zone, the last zone before this huge impulsive move. And now the last time price came there, price did another pump. Now did a bit of a pullback, which happens to be looking like a flag, because of course I could say yes, this happens to be a flag pattern where I have my leg, and then this is the flag in between. Now at this junction, I did not just enter the trade because it is respecting the trend line. No, I actually pulled out my Fibonacci extension, which yes, I use for pullback confirmations, and now I tend to focus on the 61.8, the 50.0, and at most the 38.2. But most importantly, I like the 50.0 and the 61.8 because they always have a higher probability, and we call them the golden pockets. That's where you get best risk to reward trade setups. All right. In combination with that, now I went to the 4 hour. On the 4 hours, my Fibonacci is showing me that price has retested the 61.8 here. It did here also. Now at the same time, closing with an engulfing candle, rejecting the zone, which happens to be a demand zone. Now also it is respecting the 4 hour and the daily time frame trend line. Using this as confluence, I see that okay, price tried to rally, pull back, and still closed engulfing, which was actually a confirmation for me. So I went to my lower time frame, which was my 1 hour, and then I opened my position, setting my stop loss below this zone, and then this trade is currently running. So we're actually in profit, and we've done about I think about 20 pips, about 15 pips currently. So we're waiting to see how the trade turns out. So all right, I've come to the end of this trendline trading video. I hope you found value. Please do well to subscribe and like this channel, to like this video and subscribe to this channel. This is Wealth FX, trading made easy, and we're focused on simplifying trading as much as possible. All right, so I hope to see you in the next video, and have a blessed day. Ciao.